Now, when we have a variable that's underneath a square root, we want to, so remember, we always want to undo this in reverse order of operation, so we do the easiest thing first. So I'm going to divide off the 10 from both sides, so I'll divide by 10 to get rid of that. So really have the square root of 25v equals 5. Now, to get rid of a square root, we need a square. So the opposite of a square root is a square, so I'm going to take this whole side and square it, and then take this whole side and square it. So you have to do it a side at a time. So here the square and square root go away and we just have 25v, and over here 5 squared is 25. Now I can keep going and divide off the 25, so v equals 1. What that means is if I could put a 1 right there, this should be true. And see, if I put a 1 right there, that'd be 25 times 1, which makes that whole thing 5. 10 times 5 is 50. Okay, so we want to get the square root isolated. That means we want to get the square root by itself before we square both sides. So I need to, so remember, parentheses, then exponents, then multiply and divide, then add and subtract, but we're going easiest thing first. So our choices here are multiply by 7, and a square root, remember a square root is the same thing as a half power. So a square root and an exponent, square roots are on the exponent level. So multiply is easier to undo than exponents. So we undo the multiply first. I'm going to divide by 7 first, and it's really 8 equals the square root of 7p minus 6. Now you don't square root pieces, you square root sides. So I'm going to square this side and that side. You have to do entire sides at a time. Now that and that go away, so we have 64 is 7p minus 6, and now we just continue with algebra. So I'm going to go ahead and just add 6 to both sides. And then divide off the 7. So we end up with p equals 10. Okay, you square sides at a time, so I'm going to write that up here. Side equals side. When you have an entire side, even if this side is like plus 7, you got to capture the entire side to square it like that. You don't square root pieces, you don't square pieces, you square sides. So number 3 is ready to go. We can take that side and square that side, and now those two go away, and those two go away, and we end up with just 3b minus 23 is 17 minus b, and then just solve it normally from there. So I'll add b. Then add 23. And divide off the 4. So b is 10. Okay, so those are ready to go. We can, number 4 is the same thing. It's just ready to go. That side and that side are isolated already. So now we can just square them both, and the square and the square root reduce, and the square and the square root reduce. So we have b plus 3 equals 12 minus 2b, and then just do what we always do. I guess I'll add 2b to both sides. So we have 3b plus 3 equals 12. Subtract the 3. And divide off the 3. So b is 3. Okay, so you do sides at a time. So on 3 and 4, they both were square roots, so the squares all went away. But it doesn't matter. You just got to I'll square this side and this side. So that square root and that square root go away just to be 6k, but over here it becomes k squared. Now, these have 2 answers a lot of the times. So I'm going to go ahead and try to solve this. I'll move the 6k. I'm going to set it equal to 0. So I have k squared minus 6k equals 0. Now we just went over a whole section of this. How about I factor out a k? That leaves k minus 6 equals 0. Okay, when you have two factors equal to 0, each one is equal to 0 itself, so there's one answer, 0, and k minus 6 is the other answer of 6. Okay, so number 6, when I do that, I'll go ahead and just square both sides to get rid of. So that square and that square root go away, so we have 2x left on that side, but we have x squared left on that side. So I'll set this one equal to 0 and do the same thing we just did. I can factor that out. X squared minus 2x equals 0. That factors to x and x minus 2. And whenever you have two factors equal to 0, each one does. So x equals 0 is one of the answers, and x minus 2 equals 0 is the other answer, which gives us 2. Okay, number 7 is the one where it really matters now. You cannot square pieces. So when I square this, we have to square sides like that. This whole side has to get squared. That's not going to become p squared minus 16. It's more than that. These two go away, so it's just p minus 4. But this one we have to square out. That's p minus 4 times another p minus 4. It's always the first one. You can go ahead and FOIL it, but it's always the first one squared. Multiply them together and double it, so there's negative 4p doubled. And then the last one squared. Negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. So there that piece is squared out. It's the entire side, which gives you a middle term. Okay, let's set this one equal to 0. I'm going to subtract p and add 4. So this side is 0. Here we have p squared minus 9p plus 20. Okay, I'm going to factor that. Looks like 5 and 4 will do that. So p minus 4 times p minus 5. Negative 4 times negative 5 is 20. Negative 4 in the middle, negative 5 in the outers. That adds up to negative 9. So I have p minus 4 times p minus 5 equals 0. So two factors equal 0. So this one equals 0 by itself. So we have p is 4. And this one equals 0 by itself. So we have p is 5. Okay, number 8, you have to get it like that. I'm going to try to isolate the square root. So first I'm going to take this minus 2 and add it to the other side. So it starts out as m plus 2 equals the square root of 2m plus 3. So if you can, you want this square root to be isolated by itself so that when you square it, that part is done. So that and that are gone. And we got the 2 out of the way. So this piece is 2m plus 3. First one squared, so that'll be m squared. Multiply them together, 2m, and double it. And then the last piece squared, 2 times 2 is 4. So that's the fast way to multiply that out. You could just go and multiply it twice, but FOIL. But I like to do it in my head. So I'm going to subtract 2m from both sides and subtract 3 from both sides, so that we can have it equal to 0 over here. Okay, so we've got m squared minus 2m plus 1. That will factor to m minus 1 times m minus 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. There's a negative 1 on the inners, there's a negative 1 on the outers, they add up to negative 2. Okay, so each factor equals 0 itself, so m minus 1 equals 0, so m is 1, and we don't have to do it again, it's going to be the same answer. So they both end up having just the same answer of m equals 1. Okay, so number 8, what we wanted to do is move the 2 out of the way, so when we squared it, that was done. Well, take a look at number 9. You end up not being able to do that. So there's see, it doesn't really matter what I do. I could move this group over here, or I could move the 2 over there. I'm not going to be able to get a single set of square roots by themselves because square roots, even if I subtract this over there, they don't subtract. So let's go ahead and just square both sides and see what happens. It fixes this one right away. So we have 10 minus r equals. Okay, now how am I going to deal with this? Well, all right, this whole thing is the first term. That's the first, and that -2 is the last. So it's always the first term squared. So all of this squared is just going to be 3r minus 2. Okay, then you multiply them together and double it. So -2 times this is going to be -2 square roots of 3r minus 2, but then double it. So it's going to be -4 square roots of 3r minus 2. And then the last one is -2 times -2 is plus 4. See, by squaring this out, having that extra 2 in there didn't get rid of all of the square roots. So let's get it down to just that one. I'm going to take this 3r and put it to the other side. I'm going to take this plus 2 and put it to the other side. I'm going to take this 4 and put it to the other side. Now that 4 can't do anything yet. That 4 is connected to the square root. So this side is -4 square roots of 3r minus 2. This side is 10 plus 2 is 12 minus 4. 12 minus 4 is so 8. So 10, 2, and -4 make 8. And then I've got -r and -3r is -4r. Now we can divide everybody by 4 now. You can divide all pieces by -4. You can divide this side by -4 and this side by -4. Okay, that means those go away. 8 divided by -4 is -2. And -4 divided by -4 is positive 1r. Okay, well, now we can do it one more time. See, now we can square both sides. So it took 2 squaring both sides to make this get down to some algebra that we can do in Algebra 1. Okay, it's just like we did up here. It's the first term squared, 4. Then you multiply them together, -2r, and double it. Then it's the last term squared. All right, let's set this equal to 0. I'm going to subtract 3r, and I'm going to add 2. Okay, so this side is 0. This side is r squared minus 7r plus 6. Okay, that looks like that will factor to 6 and 1. How about r minus 6 and r minus 1? -6 times -1 is positive 6. There's -6 on the inners, -1 on the outers adds up to -7. So now each one of these equals 0 by itself. So r is 6 and r is 1. Now, we should be going back to check these. I'm going to go back and check this just to make sure, because sometimes you get answers when you have to square it twice, and sometimes you get extra answers, so we need to go back and check this. We can do it in our head. If r is 6 right there, that's 10 minus 6, which is 4. So I have the square root of 4 equals. And then if r is 6 right there, 3 times 6 is 18 minus 2. 18 minus 2, so that would be the square root of 16, and then that minus 2. So here it's 2, and here it's 4 minus 2, so that one checks out. So r is 6. What about 1? 10 minus 1, that would be the square root of 9. 3 times 1 is 3 minus 2. That would be the square root of 1 minus 2. Is that one true? So that's 3 equals 1 minus 2. See, that one ends up not being true. So this was the extra answer we got out of that, which we now have to throw out. So when you square these problems twice, sometimes the extra square gives you an extra answer, so you got to go back and check them. So really this one was only 6. Okay, let's do that again with number 10. Okay, so I'm going to square both sides. That fixes this one. Oops, sorry. That fixes this one. But this one, it's the first piece squared, so it's this whole thing, that's the first piece. So it's that whole thing squared, which just makes it 2m plus 6. There's that, a square on a square root, just make it go away. But then I got to multiply them together, which gives me 2m to negative 2 times the square root of 2m plus 6, and double it. So it's going to be minus 4 2m plus 6. And then the last piece squared. So all of this is that one multiplied out. And then this square root and that square end up canceling out, so we just have the 2m minus 6. Wow, look at this. Here's a 2m minus 6, and there's a 2m minus 6. If I subtract 2m and subtract a 6, subtract 2m and subtract a 6, those are gone. And then this 4 can just get moved over there. So really I have this negative 4 2m plus 6. There's that piece. And then that 4 went to the other side. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 4. So we end up with 2m plus 6 equals 1. And now I'm going to square both sides. Those are gone now, so we have 2m plus 6, and 1 squared is 1. So subtract 6 from both sides. That'll give me 2m. 1 minus 6 is negative 5. And divide off the 2. Okay, I squared this problem twice, so that may be an extraneous answer, so I have to check it. So I'm going to go ahead and test this out. So over here I have, I'll do it in red so we can see the difference. We have 2 times m plus 6 minus 2. Let's see what that is first of all. Okay, those 2's are going to go away, so negative 5 plus 6 is going to be the square root of 1 minus 2. Then the other side was 2m minus 6. So 2 times negative 5 halves minus 6. That's going to be the square root of 1. So here I have the square root of 1 minus 2. So that'd be 1 minus 2. Here I have the square root of 1. Okay, that's negative 1 equals 1. That is not true. We have to throw that one out. So number 10 actually has no solutions. Because the one answer that we ended up getting when we put it back in there, it did not give us a true sentence. So when you have to square things 2 times, you end up getting an extra answer sometimes. Like over here, we ended up with 2 answers, but one of them didn't work. Over here, we only ended up with 1 answer, and that one didn't work. So you have to check those when you're squaring both sides. Check your answers.